stargazing scientists at NASA are confident that within the next few decades, humans will discover the very first signs of extraterrestrial life. Yet some believe it's entirely possible alien craft have already visited Earth.
A man in New Jersey didn't just witness a UFO gliding over a quiet field in the dead of night. He allegedly shot it down, captured pictures of its strange interior, and posted everything online. At first, it sounded like a wild story too ridiculous to be taken seriously. Then, in a matter of hours, his posts vanished along with his entire digital presence, leaving everyone to wonder if there was a kernel of truth in his shocking claims. According to the scattered remnants of his posts, the object wasn't just a common drone or an odd piece of machinery, it seemed to be something far more advanced. Metallic plates that looked liquefied in places, symbols no one recognized, and glowing sections that seemed to pulsate like organic tissue. The images, though fleeting, sent ripples of excitement and fear across various online forums. Speculation ran wild, but hard facts were scarce. One thing was certain: something crashed in Blairstown, and Craig, the man who claimed to have brought it down, disappeared in the aftermath. Strangely, Blairstown had already been on the map for UFO enthusiasts. Over the last few years, reports of glowing orbs and silent triangular crafts became increasingly common in this rural region of New Jersey. People described objects that darted across the sky at impossible speeds, sometimes seeming to defy gravity by turning on a dime or hovering like they weighed nothing at all. Most sightings were brushed off as weather balloons or misidentified aircraft, but every so often a piece of footage or a statement from a credible witness made the local community question these easy explanations. Then came Craig's startling assertion that one of these crafts wasn't just flying around in the dark, it had actually been knocked out of the sky. Shortly before his social media accounts went dark, Craig's final post recounted how he'd been outside late at night, drawn by an odd humming sound. He claimed he saw lights dancing close to the treetops, far brighter than any typical aircraft navigation lights. He aimed his hunting rifle more out of raw impulse than any logical plan and fired. By his description, the object didn't soar off or vanish. He heard a deafening metallic crash nearby. Within minutes, he approached the crash site and snapped several pictures before something made him run back home. Users who saw those images described them as otherworldly. One showed twisted metal with shimmering edges. Another appeared to capture an interior glowing with a soft, purplish tint. Many thought it was too dramatic to be real. Others insisted it was the genuine deal. And then, all evidence vanished alongside Craig's account. In the wake of this sudden digital disappearance, the rumors started to swirl. Government agents had seized Craig's devices. The craft had been removed under the cover of night, and witnesses had been encouraged to keep quiet. Some believed the entire story was an elaborate hoax, maybe a publicity stunt or a viral marketing scheme that would be debunked once the right investigators dug in. Yet the more the military presence in the region grew, the less convinced people became that this was just another tall tale. Onlookers reported seeing large trucks rolling into Blairstown, accompanied by black helicopters that circled the crash site. The roads leading to the location were barricaded, and armed guards were stationed to deter curiosity seekers. In a matter of hours, the place looked like a restricted zone. In an online community dedicated to unexplained phenomena, an anonymous poster claimed to have inside information. He stated that officials didn't just cordon off the crash site, they also conducted swift, confidential arrests, detaining anyone who tried to approach the area or record the operation on their phones. He offered no proof besides a handful of blurry photos showing distant figures in camouflage gear. Still, members of the forum took his words seriously, especially given the rumor that Craig himself had been placed in custody or forced into hiding. Whether by a secret government agency or a private military contractor, the motives behind these alleged detentions were unclear. All that was known was that ordinary citizens were being shut out, and any trace of the incident on social media was being systematically wiped. It didn't help that this part of New Jersey had become notorious for unexplained sightings in recent months. Residents had seen triangular lights hovering silently over farmland. They had watched them dip low, sometimes just above treetop level, before shooting off at speeds that defied logical physics. Some described what looked like a glowing metal that rippled as though it were alive, shifting colors from dull silver to luminous green in a heartbeat. These consistent reports, combined with what Craig posted, led people to question whether these craft were even built by human hands. Skeptics argued that advanced military technology is far ahead of what the public realizes, and that what folks were witnessing were highly classified projects being tested in less populated regions. But why would any test flight be reckless enough to risk being shot down by a civilian? That part never quite made sense. Then again, believers in the extraterrestrial angle saw a clear narrative forming. Non-human craft were coming closer, performing clandestine surveys of rural areas, perhaps to study local wildlife or measure Earth's resources. A mistake or malfunction had caused one to hover too low, giving Craig the perfect chance to fire off that shot. According to this hypothesis, the rapid government response was an effort to contain the situation, retrieve the craft, and erase all evidence of its alien origin before the public at large could see what had been discovered. In this version of events, Craig's disappearance was part of a larger plan to ensure he remained silent about what he'd witnessed. The eerie hush around the matter only fueled deeper speculation. If it was all a hoax, why erase it so thoroughly? If it was the real deal, how far would the authorities go to keep the truth hidden? People began drawing comparisons to historic cases like the Roswell incident, where rumors of a crashed UFO swirled for decades. Debates raged over whether the government had lied to the public and withheld evidence of alien life. This New Jersey event, though not as widely known, seemed to follow a similar script. An unexpected crash, extraordinary claims, hurried military lockdowns, and the swift vanishing of any photographic proof. Those who wanted to confirm or deny the story traveled to Blairstown, hoping for first-hand accounts. A few locals were willing to talk. Off the record, they spoke of hearing loud explosions that night, of seeing bright searchlights comb through the woods, of feeling an unshakable sense that something huge was happening right under their noses. But none of them could offer solid proof. Without verifiable evidence or official statements, online theorists were left to fill the gaps. One group subscribed to the idea that the entire event was a psychological operation, orchestrated to see how the public would react to the notion of a real UFO crash. The narrative went that the military used advanced drone technology to stage a convincing scenario complete with social media infiltration, then studied the panic and curiosity that followed. If that were true, it meant Craig might not have actually disappeared. Perhaps he was an actor playing a role in a carefully choreographed drama. Another subset of people believed in an even more sinister explanation. The craft was indeed extraterrestrial, and the government had been working with unknown entities for years. Craig's interference had upset a delicate balance, forcing officials to clamp down harder than ever before to maintain secrecy. Meanwhile, as conspiracy theories spread, mainstream media outlets mostly ignored the story, dismissing it as an internet hoax. Local news stations briefly mentioned the strange noises and the rumor of a crash, but without official confirmation, the coverage faded. Residents of Blairstown found themselves caught between disbelief and apprehension. Those who had never seen anything unusual scoffed, while others recalled countless nights of unexplained lights dancing on the horizon. The tension grew as curious onlookers tried to approach the alleged crash site, only to be warned off by uniformed figures who never showed identification. It became nearly impossible to separate truth from rumor in the swirl of confusion. Questions about Craig's fate took center stage among those who followed the story online. Was he under military custody? Did he sign a non-disclosure agreement under duress? Had he gone into hiding of his own free will, fearful of retribution for publicizing the photos? Some said they caught glimpses of him in local stores looking nervous and refusing to speak. Others insisted he had left the state. A few of his former acquaintances said he was an honest, if impulsive individual who would never orchestrate a hoax for attention. His abrupt departure from social media was the biggest clue that something serious had gone down. Social media users created entire threads analyzing every word he'd written, before his disappearance, hoping to find clues about what really happened that night. Around this time, another witness emerged, claiming to have heard a second gunshot and seen multiple craft in the sky at once. This person, using the handle Whisper Watcher, said that after the first object crashed, two more appeared overhead, flashing red and white lights in patterns that seemed unnervingly precise. Whisper Watcher insisted that the presence of multiple UFOs explained the overwhelming response from the authorities. It wasn't just a single stray drone or aircraft at stake, there could have been an entire fleet. According to this account, the following nights were filled with the hum of helicopters, the roar of transport jets, and even unmarked vans traversing the back roads near the crash site. While no one could verify these claims, the mere suggestion of multiple craft made the story even more daunting. In a deeply paranoid twist, a handful of people posited that Craig's photos might have shown more than just strange metal and glowing lights. They speculated about the presence of a biological entity within the wreckage, a patch of grayish skin, or a cluster of tendrils attached to the craft's inner walls. No one could be certain because any copies of the original images were scrubbed from the internet. Some claimed that a screenshot was floating around in hidden corners of the web, showing a faint silhouette that might have been a humanoid shape. Debates over the legitimacy of these pixelated images raged on, and the emotional stakes only got higher. If a living organism had truly been found, it explained why the military would go to such lengths to conceal everything. It wasn't just technology at risk. It was the disclosure of extraterrestrial life. The entire affair took an even stranger turn when a retired Air Force officer, going by the initials HK, made a cryptic statement online. He said he'd known for years that the U.S. government had protocols for fallen star events, an internal code for any unidentified craft that crashes in American territory. According to him, these protocols involved instant lockdowns, immediate confiscation of evidence, and the silencing of any civilians who got too close. HK wouldn't provide documentation, but his words dovetailed with the chain of events in Blairstown. He insisted that if someone truly had shot down an unidentified craft, that person would be considered a national security risk until authorities could assess the severity of what was discovered. A wave of speculation arose about whether the government was less concerned about alien technology and more worried that it could fall into the hands of foreign adversaries. Despite the veil of secrecy, a brave group of local UFO hunters decided to conduct their own investigation. They combed the woods near where Craig's photos were supposedly taken, looking for scorched earth or broken tree branches that might indicate a crash. Some claim to have found unusual burn marks in a clearing, spaced in neat circles, almost as though something extremely hot had set down. They collected samples of the soil, hoping to analyze them for traces of exotic metals or radiation. Whatever they found was never conclusively proven, but their presence alone demonstrated that a portion of the public was not content to let this story vanish in a wave of doubt. Online communities clung to every shred of data, piecing together timelines of the night's events. According to these amateur detectives, the initial sighting happened around 11:37 p.m., with the shot and crash occurring just before midnight. Military forces reportedly arrived a little after 1 a.m., setting up checkpoints by 2 a.m. People claimed that by 3 a.m., multiple trucks had headed out of town, carrying large, tarp-covered shapes. By sunrise, the operation seemed all but completed, with only a handful of federal-looking cars lingering. The chilling efficiency of the response made many wonder whether the government had tracked this craft long before it was shot down, or if they had been alerted the moment Craig fired that fateful shot. The sheer speed at which everything transpired hinted at a high level of readiness that goes beyond simple coincidence. Amid the uproar, stories began to swirl that the area had a spike in unmarked helicopter sightings in the weeks leading up to the crash. They flew quietly and low, often late at night, and typically headed in the same direction, straight toward the region where the UFO would eventually come down. Some speculated that the military had been monitoring an ongoing presence of unidentified craft in those skies and was just waiting for the right moment to intervene. If that was true, maybe Craig's involvement was an accident in a much bigger game. Others argued that the government might have tried to capture the object intact, only for Craig's gunshot to spark the crash prematurely. People soon turned their attention to the broader question: why would these craft, if indeed extraterrestrial, choose New Jersey? Could it be something about the state's mixture of urban sprawl and rural farmland that made it an ideal observation site? Some pointed to the presence of nuclear power plants or large-scale industrial facilities that might pique the interest of advanced watchers. Others suggested that the sightings were random and that these visitors traveled wherever they pleased. If advanced beings could cross interstellar space, pinpointing one quiet corner of New Jersey might be as easy as flipping a switch. At the same time, parallels were drawn between this alleged crash and the countless other UFO sightings reported globally. The consistent details, silent operation, instantaneous acceleration, and the shimmering appearance of the craft were recounted from every corner of the planet. Pilots, both commercial and military, had documented bizarre encounters where objects outmaneuvered them as if they were standing still. The phenomenon was global, but the Blairstown incident brought a sense of urgency that seemed more personal. It was in a backyard, so to speak, and a local man claimed he'd physically brought down one of these enigmas. In the midst of all the swirling theories, there was a different narrative, that the UFO was actually a top-secret drone. This line of thought suggested it wasn't extraterrestrial at all. Instead, it was part of a clandestine program involving next-generation technology, possibly employing stealth and anti-gravity propulsion systems that remain unknown to the public. If that were correct, then Craig's act of shooting it down exposed a hidden development program. The military's swift reaction would make sense as a means to prevent adversaries from gaining insights into advanced U.S. capabilities. The cover-up might have been less about aliens and more about preventing foreign intelligence services from glimpsing cutting-edge prototypes. Yet even if this explanation satisfied some aspects, it didn't neatly address the descriptions of liquid-like metal and organic-seeming structures inside the craft. Through it all, residents of Blairstown reported a growing unease. Even if they hadn't seen the UFO themselves, they felt the tension hanging in the air. It became common to see strangers driving slowly through rural roads, hoping for a glimpse of a military convoy or a sign of the crashed object. Some locals claimed to receive anonymous warnings not to talk to outsiders about that night, fueling the idea that a concerted effort was underway to suppress the entire story. The mystery tightened its grip, and as weeks turned into months, the lack of fresh developments only seemed to make the incident more intriguing. With no official statement to confirm or deny the rumors, everyone was free to project their own beliefs onto the blank slate of the unknown. Conversations inevitably turned to the bigger picture. If this was truly an extraterrestrial craft, what did it mean for humanity as a whole? Perhaps it was a wake-up call that we're under observation by something beyond our comprehension. Could these beings be scouts gathering data? Were they potential allies or silent threats biding their time? If it was just advanced human technology, that realization was also unsettling, suggesting that leaps in defense research were happening in secret, beyond any public oversight. In either scenario, the event served as a reminder of how much remains hidden from everyday people, how many secrets lurk in the skies above. For those who kept up with every twist and turn, the story took on an almost mythic quality. People recounted it in late-night gatherings, describing the hum of the UFO, the flash of the gunshot, and the explosive wave of rumor that followed. Blairstown, once known primarily for its quiet farmland and close-knit community, became synonymous with one of the strangest alleged crashes in modern UFO lore. Even if official channels refused to acknowledge it, the social media sphere held on to the tale, preserving it in forum threads, private chat groups, and hush-hush conversations among believers. In the aftermath, some began to question their own viewpoints on life beyond Earth. Skeptics who once dismissed UFO sightings outright considered the possibility that there might be more to the phenomenon. Believers doubled down, convinced that an intergalactic drama was playing out in our backyards. A swath of people tried to remain neutral, recognizing that both the truth and the lies might be more complicated than we could imagine. Meanwhile, the relentless drive for conclusive evidence continued. Late-night skywatchers set up cameras, scanning the stars for a repeat appearance of those mysterious lights. Researchers pored over satellite images, examining any changes to the terrain that might confirm a crash. Every new rumor was dissected for credibility, and every photograph or snippet of video was analyzed in excruciating detail. Still, one fundamental question remained. What really happened to Craig, and what did he see inside that craft? The final messages he posted hinted at something that defied conventional logic, something that sent a chill through him. He wrote about shapes and textures unlike anything he'd encountered, of a low hum that felt more like a living heartbeat than any mechanical engine. His words suggested awe, confusion, and more than a hint of fear. Then, just like that, he was gone from the internet. The abruptness was startling. No final sign-off, no explanation, just a digital void where his accounts used to be. If the authorities were involved, they'd clearly made certain that any trail leading to the truth was erased as thoroughly as possible. In discussing the ramifications of this event, people inevitably arrived at the subject of how to react if you ever encounter something you can't explain. Experts on unidentified phenomena often advise staying calm, maintaining your distance, and documenting only if it's safe to do so. After all, if you find yourself face-to-face with technology or beings from beyond your realm of understanding, panic isn't exactly your friend. Some folks joked that they'd do exactly what Craig did and try to shoot first. Others insisted that violence or rash acts would only provoke a disastrous response if these visitors possessed immeasurable power. Regardless, the Blairstown crash turned the hypothetical into a tangible scenario, one that you could imagine occurring in your own backyard. It also led to a spike in people reporting even the slightest strange occurrence. Lights in the sky were no longer casually brushed off as airplanes or satellites. Every meteor became a potential downed craft. Even the wind rustling through trees late at night was enough to set some imaginations ablaze. This collective heightened awareness might be seen as paranoia by some, but others argue it's a necessary shift. With more and more unexplained sightings emerging, perhaps it's time for humanity to take them seriously. The boundary between science fiction and reality seemed to blur in Blairstown, forcing everyone to question their old certainties. Eventually, as the story began to fade from the mainstream consciousness, replaced by other headlines and controversies, only dedicated followers kept the flame alive. They reminded each other that the absence of public proof doesn't mean the event never happened. They speculated that the military had possibly reverse-engineered components from the crashed craft or had stored them in a top-secret facility. Some believed the knowledge gleaned from that wreck would usher in revolutionary changes, from limitless energy sources to new modes of transportation. Others feared the worst, that tampering with something not of this earth could trigger unknown dangers, diseases, or even open the door to an invasion if those who lost their craft came searching for it. Over time, theories stacked upon theories, creating a dense web of possibilities where anyone could find a thread to believe in. Perhaps the most unsettling notion was that the crash was intentional, that these visitors wanted humans to find their craft. If that were the case, Craig's gunshot might have played a role in a larger plan. Maybe the images he shared were the first glimpse of something that would eventually reveal itself in a much more dramatic fashion. The silence that followed could have been the calm before a new storm. For now, though, it was all rumor and supposition. The only tangible thing was the sense that a massive secret lay hidden under layers of denial and obfuscation. This convergence of accounts, theories, and suppressed evidence puts the Blairstown crash in a peculiar place in modern UFO lore. It's a story too big to be outright dismissed, yet too lacking in hard proof to be fully accepted. Investigators continue digging through whatever scraps they can find, fervently hoping that one day additional photos or eyewitness accounts will surface. Yet with each passing day, it becomes less likely that new, undeniable material will appear. Time, as it often does, steadily covers tracks and eases memories. Even the most extraordinary events can fade into legend if left unverified for too long. The conversation inevitably circles back to that gnawing sense of uncertainty. Did the man who claimed to shoot down the UFO realize he was stepping into dangerous territory? Was he prepared for the storm of attention and potential backlash his story would generate? Perhaps he believed the public had a right to know, or maybe he acted on impulse in the heat of the moment. Either way, the subsequent silence from Craig speaks volumes. It suggests that whether the craft was extraterrestrial or clandestine military hardware, the powers that be intended to keep it hidden no matter the cost. What does it all add up to? In the end, the Blairstown incident stands as a glaring reminder that countless mysteries remain just out of reach, overshadowed by official secrecy and the fragility of digital evidence. People wonder if this was the beginning of a greater revelation, a small crack in the wall of denial that surrounds the topic of unidentified flying objects. Or maybe it was just another story in a long line of incidents that generate brief public fascination and then disappear from memory. If there's one takeaway, it's that our skies still hold secrets we may not be ready to comprehend. Whether or not we ever find out the truth behind that night in New Jersey, the questions it raised will continue to echo. Are we alone in this universe, or is something else out there, far beyond the grasp of our day-to-day understanding? As for Craig, his name remains a whispered footnote in conspiracy circles, a cautionary tale about what happens to those who stumble upon secrets that governments, human or otherwise, would rather keep buried. Some people remain adamant that he was taken in by shadowy agencies, interrogated, and perhaps relocated under a new identity to ensure his silence. Others say he simply changed his name and left social media to evade the onslaught of attention and ridicule. No official report has ever confirmed or denied his existence, leaving him a ghost in the machine, a figure as enigmatic as the craft he purportedly brought down. It's not hard to imagine why so many stay intrigued by the possibility that we are not alone, and that perhaps on a fateful night in Blairstown, one man briefly tore the veil, hiding a reality too immense for us to fully grasp. The truth, whatever it is, remains elusive. Some prefer it that way, content to ponder the mysteries without demanding closure. Others obsess over uncovering every fragment of evidence, determined to force a revelation no matter how long it takes. Whichever camp you find yourself in, the lessons from Blairstown are clear. Strange things sometimes fall from the sky. People do vanish from public view under puzzling circumstances. The internet can become scrubbed of scandalous information overnight. And even the quietest towns can be thrust into global intrigue when the unknown collides with everyday life. Could the man's disappearance be a government cover-up, or did he uncover something too dangerous for the world to see? That question lingers, lingering like a thick fog over the New Jersey countryside where it all began. Even today, if you wander those dark back roads and gaze up at the star-filled sky, you might catch a glimpse of something that doesn't quite fit your understanding of flight. Maybe it's just a plane or an illusion of light, but then again, maybe it's not. In the silence of those fields, under the same sky that may hide visitors from beyond, the memory of that supposed crash endures. People keep talking, keep wondering, and keep searching. And as long as they do, the story of Blairstown will remain a testament to humanity's unyielding fascination with what lies beyond our reach. So tell us, what do you think really happened that night? And what would you do if you found yourself face to face with an object that defies everything we believe we know? Don't forget to stay curious. Keep looking up and share your thoughts with anyone you trust to grasp the weight of such an unsettling possibility. After all, the truth might be out there, but it's up to us to keep our eyes open and our minds ready for whatever comes next. And if you've made it this far, you already know that this could be just the beginning.